are about to be spoken on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, brought to you by the Ad Free Show's Podcast Heat and Wrestling According to Alba Networks. I'm Jon Alba. That's the broken one, the woman one, the spoken one himself, Mr. Matt Hardy. What's going on, man? How are we here?
Doing good, man. Just busy, in the midst of this traveling the world every single day, every single week. Just go in the midst of this this marathon of go.
Yes. Well, as if you listened to last week's episode, as I alluded to, we are taping this a week in advance. So there is going to be some wrestling news that we typically would hit on that we normally don't because, well, it hasn't happened yet as far as we see it. And you are still currently in Orlando doing that gimmick. You did the TNA tapings, and then you got a nice little trip to Disney with the kiddos this weekend. They're all looking forward to that, I'd have to imagine.
Yes, very much so. They're super excited. I called them this morning right after I finished at the gym, and they all the kids were like packing up. They were packing their bags, getting ready to leave tomorrow. They couldn't pack soon enough.
Is Evie super into the princesses?
Yeah. She's very into the whole princess concept. I'm her prince too. She said, "I'm the princess. You're the prince.
Oh,
I'm going to marry you, Dada. I'm going to marry you."
That's an interesting concept.
She likes to say over and over. Yeah.
Is she still a Little Mermaid, Mark?
I'm sure she is.
Okay.
But she actually has a lot of the costumes. She has like a Rapunzel costume, and she has a Snow White costume, and like she's like, "I want to be Snow White. I want to be Punzel." Yeah. She has a different she loves, yeah. And she's like, "Dada, princess is a girl, a prince is a boy," and she'll break it down for me,
Okay. Hey, look, sometimes you just got to get in the weeds with that stuff. It's
right.
more fair. Hey, before we hopped on here, I had a chance to interview Cope, your old frenemy, and he passed along a message to make sure that I told you, yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go.
I'll
hit you with a good one. And this originates from the legend, Claude G. Hardy, our dad. It's how he would call his dogs. He calls beagles. He in his older age, he would like to get exercise by just taking the dogs, the beagles, out through the woods, and he would just like run rabbits or squirrels or whatever it was, but he wouldn't shoot them or hunt for them. He would just get exercise by taking the dogs for a walk. But whenever he would call the dogs, it would be like this. And the very first time that Adam and Jay, Edge and Christian, came to our place, they actually stayed at our house when we were doing shows in the area in Fayetteville. And our dad was going to get the dogs to feed them, and he calls them, and they both pop huge because being Canadian, they've never heard anything like this. Our dad goes, and they're running to him, and that has become.
He called it your mating call.
And yeah, that is like an introduction. Whenever we see one another, that's usually how we greet one another. If I hear I know that it's Adam or Jay walking up.
We haven't even really talked about it. How do you feel about him facing Moxley for the AEW World Title at Revolution? And this could very well be the last time that he ever challenges for a world title.
It's interesting, for sure. I mean, Adam's a guy who is a huge star, and he has a huge following. He will bring a lot of his fans and his fan base to AEW. So I like the fact that he's being used in the best way possible. And I think building to a world title match between him and Moxley is really good. Like, I would not hate it at all if Adam wins the AEW world title. I think that could be a good thing.
Well, and then there's also right around the corner, Christian has that contract that could have him cash in on a world title opportunity whenever. So there's certainly a path to potentially seeing his old frenemy screw over the world title opportunity once again. And then there's storytelling opportunities there. But when we chatted, and you guys will see this whole conversation on the Takedown on SI in the coming days. But when we chatted, he talked a lot about how he felt like your generation of performers, they recognize what their role is today. And he feels like the best contributions he can offer is to ensuring that storytelling is embedded within all of these programs and propelling these matches forward. And he kind of takes that as his burden, as his role to play with the company. I mean, what do you think about something like that?
I mean, 100%. Storytelling in pro wrestling, like strong storytelling, is ultimately what gets people invested more than the wrestling matches. It is. If they're invested in someone's journey, their story, whatever their arc is, whatever their character is, if they can relate to them on some level, that is where you gain fans, and that's where people actually become emotionally invested within a match. When they care about the character and they care about the story. And yes, I do agree. I think storytelling is the foundation of pro wrestling. At the end of the day, that's pro wrestling is a really unique art. It's half entertainment, it's half wrestling, it's half being a live stuntman. It's there's a lot of halves in here, more than one whole, I guess. But there's so many different elements that go into pro wrestling that make it work, and it's very different from anything else. But storytelling is the foundation of pro wrestling at the end of the day.
Is that how you view your role today in 2025 too, to be that flag bearer of the art?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, if I'm given a match and I have an idea of what the time is, what kind of window we're looking at to do work in the ring, I mean, the first thing that I think about is like, okay, how do we tell the story in this time? How do we incorporate and take this story and interweave it into this match that we're doing? That's the first thing I think about before anything else. And then the moves and the match is secondary.
He's a really, really smart guy when you talk about getting into the weeds of why this makes sense here, what leads to this. Has that always been one of his strengths from your experiences of working with him, of plotting point A to point B within matches and storytelling?
Yes, very, very much so. But both him and Jay, they're both great storytellers. They're both great wrestling minds, and working with them was always a pleasure. And it just made it so much easier because you had two great minds to collaborate with. And we often, as people know, throughout the years, we came up with a lot of really good scenarios and matches and storytelling ideas.
What's the best idea he ever contributed to one of the matches that you were involved with him? There's so many, obviously, that you squared up with him. Does one stick out above any others?
I'm trying to think about a specific deal that I can think of right off the top of my head. There's times too where, I've talked about a lot with TLC. We were deciding which spot was going to go last, whether it was the spear of Jeff off the thing that was holding the belts, or me and Bubba going through the four tables. And we get into a little heated discussion about that. It wasn't an argument, but it was definitely a heated discussion. And I definitely understand why he was saying nothing was going to top that too. And it just, the way it worked out, I think at the end of the day, with the people involved, and I think even Adam was on board with it. Like the way it worked out the best was us going second, as far as positioning everyone in the match and what they're selling and what they're doing, and making sense from a psychological standpoint. He said so many great ideas. I want to say whenever we were doing that street fight and they wanted a double down, it may have been his idea to do that side effect off the stage. And then they came up with the whole things where it looks like we were electrocuted because there was shocks and smoke and everything.
Right.
That may have actually been Adam's idea.
There you go. Okay. Cool little insight there on those iconic matches between the Hardys and Edge and Christian. Who knows if we'll see another one day? Maybe we will, maybe we won't.
And both those guys, both Edge and Christian, they're very good at understanding if they are a heel, they will put themselves in the role of a heel, and they'll be a shit eating heel, and they're not afraid to relinquish their fear of being an asshole. They get it. They get the job of a heel, and they were always both great at it whenever they were in that slot.
Christian has certainly proven that. There's no doubt about that. During his AEW run, he's been more than willing to do that. So we'll see what happens with Mox and Cope, and if they decide to put that championship on Cope, if he ends up being the flag bearer. He had an interesting comment to me. He said that sure, it'd be cool for him to win, but he recognizes that now is the time for the Will Ospreays of the world to be world champions. So very selfless in positioning himself in that too. It's a really great conversation. Check that out. It's going to drop on the Takedown on SI. It's going to be a video and an article as well. He was great, and I was so happy, Matt, because he's the last of the TLC crew that I've had a chance to talk to. I had never
Oh,
talked with him until I got a chance to do this interview. So now
yeah.
I'll have to off air. I'll give you my rankings of everyone. Okay. So,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
oh, goodness gracious. So yes, as we record this, your match with the No Quarter Catch crew has not taken place yet. So I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to say,
Right.
oh, it's the greatest NXT match of all time, or yeah, we'll see what
Right.
happens next time. But you did get a chance to work with one of NXT's top talents this week, and that's going to air last night as this podcast airs, and that's Obafemi, the NXT champion. He's a total beast. I know you hadn't seen a ton of his work before getting a chance to work with him. What were your impressions of Obafemi?
A great guy, amazing look. Just looks like a star. Looks like a total badass. Has a great attitude. Very open to things. I really enjoyed working with him and teaming with him, and very respectful, very humble. Just overall, I had a great experience with him.
What do you think he brings to the table as NXT champion?
I mean, he obviously has the look where the people that are in those first few ringside seats in the first 5-6 rows, they're going to look at this guy like, whoa, this guy is a monster. He's a beast. This is someone I would not want to have to fight with. This is someone I wouldn't want to interact with if there was hostility between us. I mean, he looks like a believable killer, and that's one of the first things that helps you in pro wrestling. And he's been doing this for such a short amount of time. I think his whole journey's been about 3 years. So he's only going to continue to get better and better and better, especially with the mentality he has.
It's always fascinating to me when you have people that look like him and just their stature, their presence, where you introduce them as a heel because it's natural to make them a monster, but then they just start to get so over because the crowd's like, oh my God, this guy's awesome. Then they have to pivot and carry themselves as a babyface. And for someone who is so new to the industry, I'd have to imagine that's a challenge. What are your thoughts on that?
It can be. It is. I mean, being a babyface is tough, especially if you have like a segment of the fans that maybe you don't think you're the best wrestler. They could give you a harder time. It's much easier to be a heel because you can work hard to be universally hated, and it's much easier to do that than be universally loved. But he does a great job with stuff. And just once again, I think his look, he has such a good look. He has a very nice face. He has a great jawline, and he looks like a killer. And I feel like if you see him, you feel some of that like Road Warrior magic. Like, these guys look like killers. Like, oh my God. And they're so cool. They're so big. They look like superheroes, living and breathing superheroes. So I think he's done the best he could do. He's got a good grasp. He's working with Shawn Michaels, who probably, in my opinion, the greatest of all time. When it's all said and done, if you look through everything as far as the style of wrestling in the ring and the way you perform, the way you sell, the way you interact, promo, whatever. I mean, Shawn is just such an amazing performer, and he learns from him week in and week out, which you can't ask for a better coach if you're trying to learn and you're new into the business.
Some other old friends and familiar faces showing up in TNA over the past week as well. The Colognes, which was an unexpected surprise, but seeing them pop up. And then, of course, Elias, the now known as Elijah within TNA. The reactions were pretty strong for both of them, especially for Elijah. What do you think of those acts showing up in TNA?
I dig it. I actually saw Elijah a while back at a con, and we got to hang out and talk a little bit. And this was right after he'd been released from WWE, and he's kind of getting his feet wet. This is his first time, outside of Alexandria, really. And I just told him, I said, TNA is a great place, especially for you, because I feel you are more of a storyteller from a character perspective. That's your biggest strength, especially with what you do and how you were doing Elias at WWE. I said, so I would suggest giving TNA a shot if you get a chance. I said, but just because AEW is a little more in-ring driven overall. So it was very cool that he ended up showing up in TNA and did a little thing with Joe Hendry. And
yeah, what do you think about the Colognes showing up? Again, that's a team that pretty out of left field, but two talented guys who had a lot of equity in WWE for a while in an era where maybe the tag team division didn't get a whole lot of focus, but two very good pro wrestlers.
Yeah, they are two great pro wrestlers, and I love those guys, especially Primo. I interact with him a lot. I've got one of our inside jokes is whenever he'd be wearing his glasses, I said, "Brother, you look like a booker." I said, "What is the finish?" And we have a constant ongoing joke about that. I said, "I can't listen to your finish. You don't have your glasses on. I do not accept you as serious without glasses." So I'm excited to have those guys there. I think it's a good addition. Put some Boricuas on the roster. I love that. I can talk to them about mofongo con pollo and some favorite Puerto Rican delicacies. They're going to be there. They're very seasoned. They're guys who've been around, and they're guys who can get the job done. They get the whole character aspect. Plus, they're very good in the ring.
They are really underrated, in my opinion. So I think it's cool that you're getting a chance to work with them. It's cool that Elijah is coming in. What did you think of Full Sail? That was your first Full Sail experience, and how did they take to the experience of being there?
It was good. Everyone enjoyed it, and the trickiest thing was, like, we dressed in a building across from where the actual arena was. Just when we walked out, it was very cold last night in Florida. It was wild. We're out there. It was like mid-40s. So that was the one thing. It was chilly. Everybody talked about how you would, even if you stretched and loosened up in the dressing room, by the time you got over to Gorilla, it was you were chilly again because you had to go outside. It was fun though. The crowd was good. They were energetic throughout. We went on last. Our match didn't finish until after 11:30 p.m. and the crowd was still there for us, still kicking and still great.
And then you got a sign for all those Die Hardy fans, right?
Yes, and then we signed for a couple of hours. We had a big mega combo last night where they got to get up in the ring. So that
wow.
that added a little extra time to it too, because it's always interesting whenever the fans come get in the ring and walk up the stairs and have to get in and out of the ropes. So that slows things down a little bit. But we got her done last night.
And then they got in the ring and they said, "Is this a 16 by 16? Is this
Yeah, right. What did you guys do? Rent this from someone local in Orlando?
Is this from the Devon Dudley Academy? This ring?" See, if that happened, I'd hope AJ Francis would walk in and choke slam one of them to hell, and see what comes from that. Oh, he would have no part of that. You talked about your little inside joke with Primo about the Booker.
Right.
This was a really interesting comment that The Undertaker said on social media, or he said in an interview this week about social media. Did you get a chance to see this comment by chance?
I don't think I have. So
okay.
I'm excited.
So he was talking with Graham Matthews from Bleacher Report, and he's saying how great the WWE fan base is, and he felt though that like fan bases have changed with social media, and he says that while he thinks that people can have their own opinion, he wasn't fond of fans trying to book shows. And I'm going to read you a quote from this, and I'd love for your thoughts on this. He says, quote, "It's already better because you don't know what's going to happen, and that's the thing. Just sit back. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and that's what social media does, but don't try and book the shows. Part of the lore of social media is giving your opinion, but it comes with such hate and vitriol. They start ragging on Paul Levesque. He doesn't know what he's doing. Get Vince back. Sit back and enjoy the ride." End quote. What do you think of that notion of just sit back, just let it play out, and don't even bother fantasy booking things in your head?
I mean, I totally see where he's coming from. Sometimes it's very frustrating if you have an idea of like a story that you're doing on television, or you know where your story's going, and then people are complaining because you haven't got to the point they want you to get to yet, but it's going to be really good. And sometimes it's frustrating if they're not with you the whole while, even though you're going in the right directions and you're taking the steps to get there. So yeah, I mean, I totally understand his point when he comes to saying that.
See, I understand his perspective, but I think if you're a fan, like even think when you're a young kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're fantasy booking in your head nonstop. I'd love to see Hogan get his comeuppance on Macho Man at this show, and I hope he gets to throw him through a table. You know what I'm saying? Like, fan fiction, I think, is part of that shared collective community. You have Star Wars Reddit boards where they're trying to forecast what's going to happen in the next movie. In Marvel, I don't necessarily have an issue with fans giving their perspective on what they hope happens in a story. what they would do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that as well, but I think it also puts a different spin on everything when they go like, "Oh my God, Paul Levesque, he sucks. Get him out of there. Get Vince back in," just because they're not happy with where things are, even though if it is going to turn out being much better. And I feel like during the Triple H era, it has been better from a storytelling perspective. I feel like he's much more on the pulse of pro wrestling in 2025. I think what the frustrating part is that Taker is addressing is how fans are making those comments like this. Well, this sucks, or this is no good. This is that. I think
The toxicity of it.
yeah, I think all day long, throw out your stories. This is what I would love for them to do. I hope they do this. I hope they do that. But then, like, once you start saying all these negative things that are toxic comments that like you're maliciously going after people, that's where the problems come.
Yeah, I mean, I think when people make it personal, it oversteps the boundary.
I mean, once again, the whole thing with the tribalism. I mean, if you're like a super diehard WWE fan, I mean, that doesn't mean you have to like hate AEW. If you're a diehard AEW fan, that doesn't mean you have to hate WWE. You know, you can like both. I mean, I want everywhere to do well. I want AEW to do good. I want TNA to do good. I want WWE to do good. I want NXT to do good. I want everywhere to do good.
Certainly so. All right, Matt Hardy, we are going to have a fun episode here because we are turning the clock back to the year 2003 and No Way Out, which was 22 years ago this week, which is unbelievable to think about. But No Way Out, it is just a number. I agree with you on that. No Way Out 2003. It's you going for the Cruiserweight Championship. We're going to get to that and how that all came to be. But before we can, you know what I got to ask. Please hit us with that Matt fact.
Matt fact: Matt cherishes a deep bathtub.
Okay, this is a good one to dive into. I've watched a lot of House Hunters in the last few months with my significant other. It's very big on House Hunters and interior decorating and decor. Are you a believer in the standalone tub, or do you prefer the shower tub?
I'm okay with the shower tub. I think in a perfect world, though, I would rather have them separate. I'd rather have the shower be the shower and then have the tub beside it. And I do have that in our master room at home. But the whole reason this Matt fact came to be, this Matt fact materialized while myself and my wife, we were in Edinburgh, Scotland, and the bathtub there, they said too, like the tap water is really good here. We have our own well, you can totally drink from it, and it was really good, really fresh water. But the tub, I noticed, whenever you would turn the tub was deep, so I could get my whole body, I could submerge my whole body in it. Like, and if you turned it up all the way on high, the water was steaming hot. If you turn it all the way on cold, it was good, so I could actually sit in cold plunges. I mean, the water, the temperatures were extreme, but anytime there's a deeper tub, whether I'm putting cold water in or warm water, I love it when I can get my whole body underneath and like be submerged in it. That's the best when it comes to tubbing experiences for me.
Not always easy to walk into a Holiday Inn Express and get to dive into the tub there. So I understand where you're coming from on that. Okay. I figured you probably got some cold plunges in while you were in Europe. So that's good to hear. I gotta keep things working, right?
Gotta keep things working, man.
It's super, super important to keep things working in life. And that's why you should always make sure that you're carrying BlueChew everywhere you go, because your dick working is your number one priority. We want to help you have better sex with BlueChew, and BlueChew is the original brand offering chewable tablets. These erection-enhancing tablets help men achieve stronger, harder, and longer-lasting erections for sexual activities. BlueChew is putting its money where its mouth is and is offering you a month for absolutely free. And Matt Hardy, we love free things here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, do we not?
We absolutely do, and it's one of those things. If you're feeling broken, BlueChew will make you woken. You don't understand how hard it is to be Matt Hardy.
Well, with BlueChew, you will understand how hard it is to be Matt Hardy, because the process is so simple. You sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you're going to receive your prescription within days. BlueChew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The best part, It is all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. It is super, super easy to do. You know, Matt, this episode, we're going to talk about you losing weight to get down to 200 pounds and 205. And they say when you lose weight, it helps get the blood flowing even quicker. But man, with BlueChew, that blood's going to be free flowing, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's going to make everyone come on and rise up. You know what I mean? Much like P.D. Pablo would say.
We want to make life easier by getting harder and discovering your options at BlueChew.com. We got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of BlueChew absolutely free. Just visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring the extreme life of Matt Hardy. Okay. 205. That is the big underlying theme of this episode of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, as Matt Hardy version 1 V1 has to get down to the proper weight to compete for the Cruiserweight Championship. But our journey begins, and if you haven't checked out our Matt Hardy version 1 episode, we did it a long time ago. Go back in the archives, extremehardy.com. You are doing this new character in 2002 after splitting from Jeff. Let's catch everyone up to speed. Version 1. What's the inspiration behind it? And how did you feel that the audience was starting to take to it as you began to introduce it?
Once they officially split Jeff and I ended up going to SmackDown, I thought, like, this is a great chance for me to repackage myself, to rebrand myself. And I feel like now, because when you look at what the Hardy Boys are, you know, adrenaline junkies, fear is only a 4-letter word, no fear, whatever else, that Jeff is much more that persona than I am. You know, I am somewhat that, but that is typically Jeff, more or less. So I was like, here's my opportunity to kind of switch things up and do something that it plays to my strengths more. Let me be a character that is more in my wheelhouse. And that's kind of an over-the-top character, someone who is larger than life, someone even delusional. And that's why I said, now you're seeing Matt Hardy version 1. V1, the real version of Matt Hardy. Now you're seeing the legitimate real version of Matt Hardy and how great I am on my own. And then I came up with Mattitude as being like this religion almost that I bought into, that it made me different from everyone else because I am Matt Hardy and I have Mattitude. And if you have Mattitude, then you could possibly join me and you could be successful as well. And that's where the Mattitude followers came from also, which Shannon was a really big and integral part of what we were doing. It was great to have like an underling out there that I could bully around and take advantage of. And it fit into the character really good, especially how Matt Hardy version 1 just thought he is the most amazing thing ever. And he was so unaware of himself in so many ways.
Do you think fans were willing to give you a shot here and try a different character out?
I think so. I mean, it ended up working, and we got to that point where I would come out later, and I remember there was one point where Stephanie said, I don't know, you maybe should stop doing this. Like, I don't think this is going to catch on. And like everybody in the crowd was, you know, like throwing up V1, doing this when I would come to the ring, which was real cool and real exciting. And then, you know, when Jeff and I ended up reteaming, that became kind of a staple. You know, a lot of times Jeff throws up the gun of the Hardy Boys and I'll throw up the V1, and it still kind of like represents us both individually and as a team.
Tax season is here, which means you've received or are expecting that tax refund any day now, and you're thinking about what to spend it on. How about a new home? With SaveWithConrad.com, we're helping renters become homeowners every single day, and it's more affordable than you think. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need a huge down payment. In fact, you may not need a down payment at all. At SaveWithConrad.com, we take the stress out of the home buying process. We'll determine your buying power. We'll even help you find a realtor. And unlike the banks, we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. So if you're not ready right now, we'll get you on a plan to be ready. Stop throwing your money away, paying someone else's mortgage with your rent, and start the path towards owning your own home today at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com.
The character starts to get more and more cocky each week. Truly the definition of believing your own shit.
Yeah.
You have run-ins with The Undertaker. You have run-ins with Brock Lesnar. You're getting tossed in the fold with some top tier performers in the fall of 2002. Who's behind putting you into that fold? Who believed in the Matt Hardy V1 character and where you were going?
Vince was very supportive of it. Vince really dealt with me closely during that time, and he liked what I was doing. He liked seeing that side of my personality. He loved the fact that I was like over the top and I was doing things with such confidence, and he thought it was very believable. So when all those things were happening, when I was interacting with Undertaker and having matches with him and Brock and Paul Heyman, I interacted with those guys for 2 months, was a big part of their story as well. Vince was a huge advocate of mine and really pushed to make me work and get me over. Like even the time where I had the Falls Count Anywhere match with Taker, and there was one point where Taker said, well, what if we did this? And, maybe the finish could be this, and we kind of throw it. I said, well, I don't care what we end up doing as finish, but just Matt Hardy has to win this one because I want to keep moving him up. He has to win this match. He has to pin the Undertaker when it's all said and done. Somehow Brock fucks you and he gets it. So Vince was very adamant about that, and that was a great thing. I'd never really felt like that around Vince. That he was like, Vince, I was his guy right there, and he really fought hard for me.
I'd have to imagine he really enjoyed the concept of you having an MFer in your corner.
I'm sure he did. Even the Matt Facts, and even coming up with that, they said, hey, we have an idea. Like, I know you're doing this version 1. It's kind of like a computer or an internet thing. And I was even, I was saying things like that was a play on the internet, because I feel like when I was using the internet a lot back then, a lot of people were like, oh my God, stay off the internet. It's never going to be anything. It's just going to get you in trouble, whatever. And then they actually made my whole deal into that, with the little Windows media player that I had. And they said, hey, would you be up for doing, 1 or 2 Matt Facts a week? I said, oh my God, that sounds amazing, because I could put some outrageous stuff in there and I could put some real stuff. And that was great. And they set that up for me. They did it. And I remember I would turn in 3 or 4 Matt Facts every single TV, and then they would pop 2 of them out on the screen.
And now we have at least one every single week here.
Yeah.
Matt Hardy, so you've got an extra 200 Matt Facts out there in the near future. So
exactly.
Working out to this day. You say that you're on this great trajectory. Vince is believing in what you're doing. What were the plans going into winter 2002, turning the corner into Royal Rumble season?
Yes. Well, there were plans at that time that Edge, Adam Copeland, our friend that we talked about earlier, a friend of me, he had been on a pretty good run, and he was doing a lot of single stuff, and he was being elevated. And they knew that we worked together, that we had great chemistry. And Vince was wanting to go into a deal, and I think he had thrown this out to his writing team eventually, where me, Matt Hardy, version 1, the Sensei of Mattitude, was going to have a rivalry, a program with Edge, who was a big hot baby face and who had been elevated for the last few months, where it was going to try and continue to raise me up to his level, what he was doing. And then John Laurinaitis, this is shortly thereafter, he had been really putting his fingerprints on a lot of the creative stuff. And we'd had a couple differences of opinion from when he came in with WCW. And then he thought I should not have that slot with Adam. He thought the slot with Adam would be much better served if Prince Albert or A-Train got it. And then he ended up winning and getting that deal. He pushed through with the writers or whoever his powers that be, and behind the doors of creative, he got that pushed through. And I'll never forget that Vince said, well, we're going to go a different direction now. We're not going to do the thing with Edge. He said, but I'm thinking about doing something where maybe you're trying to lose weight to compete for the Cruiserweight title against Rey Mysterio. That could be a really good story. And, he almost said it like he felt bad for me that I didn't get the original plan, the original idea that he had to work with Edge and like elevate me. But I was like, well, this would be a challenge. And I love Rey, and working with Rey is something I can really get with. So yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I look at this as a great opportunity, a great challenge, and I'll go all in on it.
How'd that make you feel, that whole situation with John Laurinaitis kind of stomping over your trajectory there?
I mean, it was frustrating. I'm sure I was much frustrated then. I mean, now I probably wouldn't even think twice about, okay, we'll figure out what the next thing is, because I just understand, how the business works, obviously, and just have changed a lot, and matured a lot over time. But it was at the time, it was frustrating. And I thought it was really cool that Vince tried to offer up like an alternative plan and give me something that I could kind of sink my teeth into. And I'm glad I ended up doing the thing with Ray, because that is one of the more memorable things that I have done in my career. People remember that when I'm trying to lose weight and I do all these funny vignettes with Shannon. And it actually was going to be at one time whenever I wrestled him at WrestleMania, that was going to be the end of it. We are just going to do that and do it at WrestleMania. But Vince liked what we were doing and working together so much, he was going to drag that out, and we were going to end up doing the blow-off match with the Cruiserweight title at in near Anaheim. We're going to be doing that in Southern California, so that it would be a big deal for Ray, like whenever he won the Cruiserweight title, and it ended up being the main event of SmackDown. So that was really, really cool.
And we will cover all that stuff. We haven't yet to date, but I want us to have some stuff to really dig our teeth into.
And I was just going to go back, and I was going to say the WrestleMania 19 finish. Originally, Ray, the initial plan when we were doing it, he was going to win there. I was going to win the title, carry it for a little bit, and then Ray was going to win it at WrestleMania 19. But Vince liked what I was doing so much, he said, I'm going to change the finish. And this only happened a day or two before we actually got to WrestleMania 19. He said, I'm going to change the finish. I'm going to have you beat Ray and retain the title, and we're going to drag this out because I love what you're doing so much.
So he really enjoyed your process of getting there. It's fascinating because the Cruiserweight Championship was not something that was getting a lot of TV time in the beginning of 2003. I mean, how do you think Vince felt about the Cruiserweights in general, end of 2002, beginning of 2003?
I mean, it's just not really his cup of tea. You know, Vince is a big body guy. He's a big muscle guy. And he thought, the bigger the athlete he is, the more of a spectacle he is, the more they're going to recognize him as a star in the airport. And that's, that was kind of his mentality. That's how he built his whole wrestling company, by big guys that would walk through the airport and be recognized. And they'd go like, I don't even know who that is, but that guy's got to be a star. So I think when you're a smaller guy, even if you're more athletic, and, wrestling is changing a little bit at this time, like Vince was like, oh, this stuff's great, but it's not what people are looking for when they're looking for like a mega star that's going to sell tickets.
So take us through the whole losing weight stuff. It's a really unique thing. How heavy were you when you started doing the Pursuit of 205 vignettes?
I was constantly between 220 and 225 during that time. The majority of my career, I stayed in that weight range between 220 and 225. And I remember being inspired, and you hear about things where like actors go on these extreme diets to lose weight for a role, or, to beef up for a role, whatever. And I said, well, man, I'm going to do it like that. I don't know if I'm going to do a total, crazy thing, like try and lose all this weight and become thin and frail, whatever. I said, but I'm going to try and drop weight and try and do this legitimately, like try and even live this way and kind of put my mind in this character and live it and do method acting. Right. And I did. I ended up dropping down. I think I got down to probably 209, 210. I was a few pounds heavier than the 205, but I did drop about 10 pounds during that time.
This is fraudulent, you're telling me?
Well, it's pro wrestling, so I wouldn't say fraudulent. I would say it is entertainment. It is entertainment.
I see. I mean, that's great that you committed all the way to it, though, and I mean, it's benefit for your body too, to be able to be dropping a little bit of weight here, and you're getting a chance to show a little something. Plus, like, let's be real, cruiserweight wrestling is very much embedded in who you were coming up through the North Carolina wrestling scene and Omega. That style of wrestling was extremely influential to you. So how did you approach it from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, well, this is also something. It was more even, I think, motivational and inspirational for Jeff, but it was for me as well. When we first saw, I thought Ray was awesome from the very first time I saw him. Rey Mysterio and Psychosis, their series of matches on ECW, which Jeff and I got to catch, was super inspiring for us. There was a lot of stuff we bit from those matches. Some of Will-O-the-Wisp's routine came from Psychosis. So that was one thing that I thought was really cool, because I know Ray was inspiring me when he was doing the ECW stuff because it was so different. It was so unique and so cool. To get the opportunity to work with him and do things with him like that was absolutely amazing. And it's one of those things, you know, we dug that style. So it was very cool to be able to do that. And I loved working with Ray. I love Ray's thought process and just the way he puts together things.
So who's the creative force behind all these vignettes of you trying to drop weight and to be able to face Billy Kidman at No Way Out here?
I think all of that was a pretty strong collaboration. I feel like they would, you know, be in the meetings whenever they're in the production meetings. I think they would throw around ideas. There would probably be some of those ideas would be suggested in the thing, and then like think about how it works best, how you can do it. And those I feel like are the funnest times, especially when I was at WWE, when the office or Vince specifically likes what you're doing and they give you all these ideas, but you have a little leeway in it where you can kind of put your own spin on it. You can kind of paint your own picture in some ways. We got to do that so much in the Matt Hardy MVP rivalry that we had when we were doing the competitions and whatnot. But I feel like in this, it was very cool that we did. And I remember even when we were making weight, you know, where I did the thing where I stripped down all the way nude, I had to be naked to actually make the weight. I mean, that was a funny vignette. And even having Shannon there, Shannon was such great fodder to interact with and do funny stuff with. Him training me and trying to keep me motivated. I do know it was Vince's idea about being in the sweatsuit. I wrestled a match against Ray where I was like still trying to drop weight and I had on that plastic suit, and I was sweating like crazy and it was hot. But he said we'll do a thing where like you're doing good in the match, but then like you start to pass out because you're so overheated from all this. Yeah. And then Ray ends up dropping and hitting 6'9" and beats me in the match. And once again, I'm so obsessed with losing this weight and getting down to win the Cruiserweight title. It's like also costing me too. So that was really, really fun times. And it was really a collaborative effort.
Any fun stories you can tell us from shooting any of those? Maybe the one where you got naked, maybe like any good, how the sausage was made stories?
Yeah, I remember we did that, and they were just like, I remember they set it up so they had a crew of all guys because they were talking about getting a thong, and then there wasn't a thong there. So I said, okay, we can just do the deal. And they said, okay, well, we're going to shoot it. We'll just be up. We'll do this. And we just did the thing and just went ahead and got naked. Man. It was totally character performance right there. Here we go. I hope I'd taken my BlueChew that day. Just
I was gonna say you got to show off a little bit or something. Was Bruce Pritchard there? Vince there? Anyone of note there?
I feel like that was a Bruce Pritchard. I'm not sure. I don't remember 100%, but I remember it was a real small crew, and they kept it pretty intimate because once again it was a sensitive shot. They
have any thoughts on the gimmick or
I got a standing ovation afterwards.
Okay, gotcha. You were over, baby. That's all that matters at the end of the day here. So you're facing a guy who I think a lot of wrestling fans have talked very positively about in hindsight. Maybe didn't necessarily appreciate him at the time as much. But Billy Kidman, the Cruiserweight Champion, coming into No Way Out 2003. What do you think of Billy Kidman? You know, he definitely got some good opportunities in WCW. He gets the contract to come over after the invasion angle. What were your impressions of him?
I loved Billy. I loved working with him. Really, really enjoyed working with him. I love the stuff that he had done in WCW. I'd met him before out on the indies, and I was really happy for his success and that he got a spot, and it was cool when he came to WWE, and he was always a pleasure to work with. I feel like we were very like-minded in kind of the way we saw things too, as far as the way we structured matches and whatnot.
There's an old saying that runs through the wrestling circles. You know, Billy Kidman used to date Tori Wilson.
Yeah.
And people said he was the greatest overachiever in wrestling history. He outkicked his coverage, if you will. Is that something that the boys used to talk about or joke about?
I don't. It was probably more of a wrestling fan thing than anything else. Gotcha. I mean, I'm sure they did. I'm sure there were jokes about it and whatnot. But like, I don't feel like that was a big deal. Like, but everybody liked Billy. Everybody got along good with Billy. So
sure. What do you think of his shooting star press?
It was, I mean, just the fact that you can do a shooting star press is pretty amazing. I know there were a couple times on Omega shows earlier in the day where I tried doing that, and there was one time I almost ate it and like came straight down. So that was my last shooting star press attempt. So it was cool that he could do it, and he could typically be very safe with it. But it's just one of those things. It's a risky maneuver.
Big time move. Well, this is a pretty famous show, No Way Out 2003. It goes down on February 23rd in Montreal at the Bell Center. Loaded card. You get Rock versus Hogan on this show. Chris Jericho defeats your brother by submission. Austin faces off with Eric Bischoff in his first match back. Before we watch your match with Billy Kidman here, I did want to ask you about the whole Austin thing, because Austin had left the company in the middle of summer of 2002. He was going to lose a King of the Ring qualifier to Brock Lesnar, and he was furious that that wasn't a match that was built up more. So he walks out, leaves. Vince buries him on TV, and they finally start to put the pieces back together for him to come back and then have his retirement match against The Rock at WrestleMania. And this is his first match back. It's him versus Eric Bischoff, who pretty much went out to recruit him to come back. What was the sentiment around Austin returning here at this time and him coming back into the fold?
I mean, Steve was just such a big star through the Attitude Era. I think, and he was also very, very well liked. He was popular. I'm sure there were several people that disagreed with his decision, obviously, of leaving at that time. But the thing I remember more than anything else is like people were happy to have him back, and we were excited to have him back.
It was a pretty big thing that, I mean, Vince did the whole, he took his ball and went home comment.
Yeah. I mean, that they just did business. I mean, because they knew it was going to be, they knew it would be a blow to them as a company, losing Stone Cold Steve Austin, who is this massive star. So I think they like went into protection mode, and they tried to put out their side of the story to try and, minimize the damage.
Sure. All right. Well, he's back in the fold here. You are challenging for the Cruiserweight Championship. Are you ready to watch this match back?
Yeah, man, let's watch it. I don't remember it at all. I just actually remember the finish, but I don't remember the match at all.
Okay, Matt, we are going to watch this match with you and Billy Kidman. I don't have a reference time code anymore because everything has been moved around within WWE and moving stuff to Netflix, and then some people still have it on Peacock. But Matt and Billy are circling each other. The shot is on Matt right now, and we're going to start watching in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, Jimmy Corderas just gave the okay, let's go, and you just ended up locking up. And let's get into this here, man. I mean, you look good, you look fit, you look ready to compete for the Cruiserweight Championship.
And I think, sorry, this is me showing off how I'm light, I'm moving quickly, I'm ready, I'm faster than this guy. I already got up and did a few jumping jacks, after I gave him this big arm drag.
Are you going into this match with the idea that you're going to put together a more athletic cruiserweight style contest?
I was going into this match thinking story-wise, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to show this guy how I'm very fast on my feet, I'm very nimble, I'm strong, I'm in the best shape of my life. And I am going to have a good wrestling contest, but I'm really going to rub it in and let this guy know that, like, he's not going to be able to kick my ass because I'm in the best shape of my life.
Deep arm drags.
And then here you go. You're giving it straight back to your guy. You can do all that stuff and you can be cocky. You just gotta pay it back and let the babyface get theirs.
Sure. Nice little sequence there. That's fun.
Yeah. I'll get into the heat quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah. I remember that. I love that. Throw the guy down the apron and hit the post, and he did that better than anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how tall would you say he is? I'll look it up right now, but there's definitely a size disparity between you guys.
He's probably
It says 5'10". 5'10", it says, which I don't know if he was fully 5'10".
Yeah. And I do remember this is one of the times I really started during this heel run. I really tried to target the neck, especially if I'm my finisher, the Twist of Fate, being a neck breaker. I want to work over their neck as much as possible and look like I'm loosening up my opponent, softening up my opponent to hit him with the kill shot with the twist.
Yeah, was that a big change for you, having to go into working as a full-time heel singles guy after so many years as a babyface?
No, I mean, it wasn't like a hard change. It was fun. It was really enjoyable, and a lot of times the heel kind of controls the match, and I felt real good about doing that. And I realized that I can get my shit in and I can look good. It's just you just give it back to the babyface at the end of the day and make sure that you can't be afraid to look like an asshole and turn tail and run and get your ass beat.
Shannon Moore trying to cheer you on here.
Yeah, Shannon, very good in his role. I wish he would have actually been on a hard cam side instead of having his back to the camera.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that a directive that's given to him? Is that just him freewheeling on his own volition?
Maybe so. Well, okay, there we go. We got him moved over. Maybe I yelled at him. You little MF, get on hard cam side. I want to see your face.
I mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I could tell the crowd was getting here. That's one of the things I did love, and like Eddie was saying, that just like sit in this hole, wait till the crowd comes, they'll come. He's like, fuck them, don't get nervous, they'll come.
And also, you're in Montreal. You're gonna get a good crowd there.
Yeah. There we go. A little counter of the side effect. Gotta keep this kid.
I really like these hope spots here from Billy. You saw him try to get one before. Now, quick cover there. It's a very easy match to follow.
Yes. An easy match to follow is a lot of times the best match to follow, especially in front of a big arena crowd like this. Once again, targeting the neck. As you can see, I was pulling his neck back over that rope. Now I'm going to sit on his neck. Everything I'm doing is targeted as I try and soften up this guy to drop him with a deserved twist of fate.
Yeah, he tried to sneak the foot on the ropes there.
Yeah, there we go. I like the fact that the ref maybe saw it at the very end, but anytime you get a chance to be an asshole, and do it, I love the fact that you do.
Was Jimmy Corderas easy to work with?
Yeah, Jimmy was great. Jimmy was so good at giving time cues. He was always very interactive with the guys. And it's just when people are able to give you time cues and keep you on track to a T, that's the best. And Jimmy was really, really good at that.
Little front chancery, and I like there Billy Kidman too, reaching out his arms, a sign of desperation, trying to will the crowd into it. Mm-hmm. It's a subtle thing that I think resonates with people.
Yes. Here we go. It's a big spot. I'll tell you what, I really like doing that as a heel, like having a guy in a hold and then the guy shoots me off and he gets me in a sleeper. I totally bit that from Stone Cold. Whenever we wrestled the two-man power trip, he said, yeah, I do a deal here. He said, I'll have you in the sleeper. He said, give me a little bit, turn around, fight, and you put me in the sleeper. He said, I'll just get a little bit of this, and then I'll come out of it and give you a back suplex. And I love that spot. It made such great sense as a heel. It was very simple, very effective. I always got a reaction. And that's something I always implement into my arsenal whenever I'm wrestling as a heel.
Cool enziguri from Kidman. And it looks like he knocks you out. There was a subtle detail there I really like, that Corderas checked your arm to make sure you weren't knocked out. And the match keeps going.
Here we go.
Okay. A little bit of a comeback here from Billy Kidman. Oh, little Baldo bomb.
There we go. I think you got it from Billy. Billy'd been doing that forever. You've been doing that since the 5 days.
Maybe he was rubbing it in that you didn't get to have your spot because A-Train took it.
Maybe so.
He's like, I'll hit you with A-Train's finisher. Let's go.
There we go.
Leg drop. Hardy.
Leg drop back when I had hips.
Still had Jimmy legs.
Still had Jimmy legs. I was born with them. I am a mutant. I accept them.
Twist of fate. Shoots him off. Nice drop kick. So my girlfriend and I were watching your Fear Factor episode, and she was cracking up how they kept bringing up the Jimmy legs like throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, man. The Jimmy legs are.
She's like, how can he stand on that totem pole with the Jimmy legs?
40 feet up in the air, and they're dumping.
All right.
So funny when Jacqueline at the very end of that was saying, "Oh, here we go."
Oh, jackknife. Yeah, when she was like, "My mascara is in my face."
Yeah, get me down. It's raining on me. My mascara.
Oh,
She wasn't complaining about the height. It was just that. That was a Michael Hayes spot. He said right there, I think you can use Shannon. Like you see Shannon on the apron, just shove Billy into him and like sacrifice Shannon to try and pick up the win. Great spot for a kill.
Just a way to cut him off a little bit.
I mean, just but it also shows how I'm a dick. Just like Shannon's there, like I have no care for him. I'll shoot my opponent to him, and they can ram heads just to hopefully give me an advantage.
And then he gets his comeuppance there from Billy Kidman.
Yeah.
All right, setting you up. Shooting star press.
Oh,
just gets out of the way.
Just in the nick of time.
Good timing on that.
Yeah.
The spike twist of fate. 1, 2. Kicks out at 2 7/8. Crowd can't believe it.
They got a great reaction. Yeah. I can't believe it.
I mean, look, he's the champion, you know?
Yeah. Well, once again, it was in having this match, and I'm winning the cruiserweight title. It's kind of a non-cruiserweight. It was a big deal to make Billy look as good as I can in defeating him.
You're certainly going to try to do that here. To the top rope.
There we go.
Oh. He pushes you off as you try to go for the twist of fate. But as the referee checks on you, Shannon.
Yeah, just enough of a distraction, just to distract Billy from getting up and doing a shooting star.
And a twist of fate off the top rope.
What do the kids call that? An avalanche twist?
An avalanche twist of fate. And Matt Hardy, V1, is the Cruiserweight Champion.
I got the eyes on at the very end. I got the version 1 eyes.
Come on, man. You got to know where hard cam is. There you go.
I do.
Oh, fun stuff there, man. Fun stuff. What do you think watching it back?
It was a lot of fun. Fun little match too. And it's one of those things. I'm glad we did that. We shined him up a little bit there at the beginning, and got some good heat on him. And Billy made me look great in that match. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Pete.
What did Vince think afterwards?
He liked it. He was cool with the match, and once again, the stuff I did on TV the next few weeks, obviously he liked, because as opposed to wrapping it up at Mania as we were going to do initially, whenever we kind of this idea all came together, we drug it out a little bit, and we were going to do a main event of a SmackDown show for the Cruiserweight title in Anaheim whenever we got there 6-7 weeks later.
You had been the European champion before, but you were still with Jeff when you were European champion.
Right.
This is your first singles title without Jeff. How'd you feel about
that? I mean, it was cool. It was nice to be rewarded. I felt like I had worked really hard. I was very motivated. I was working. I legit was working real hard on my body that whole while I was doing that. So it was nice to be able to be put in a position to succeed and get an opportunity to do something new, and also have the trust of Vince in the office. And it worked, and they got with it.
It was great stuff, and we will definitely talk more about that Cruiserweight Championship run here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy and all that Rey Mysterio stuff. Lots to dig into that. Maybe we'll get to some of that this WrestleMania season. But yeah, man, it's fun times looking back on this period of time in your career, because this was where I think you really start to feel confident as a wrestler, and
100%.
And
especially as a singles guy.
It's a great character, and you had some good matches, and this was coming off that awesome Royal Rumble performance you had too,
right?
Just a month prior. So Matt Hardy V1 was really rolling at that time, and now he's the Cruiserweight Champion. Good stuff, man. Good stuff, and it's always good stuff here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. We want you to be part of that good stuff here. You head on over to advertisewithhardy.com, promote your business to the extreme by getting it out in front of thousands of listeners and viewers every single week as advertisewithhardy.com. And of course, you leave us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts, and that's going to help get the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy out in front of more and more people every single week. Matt, anything else you want to add here?
No, man, that was fun. I love looking back at these moments, these memories, especially when it's something I haven't watched in a long time and I don't have a vivid recollection of it. That was enjoyable. That was a lot of fun. And I always stress this. I say that the year that I did Broken Matt Hardy was the most fun year of my career. The next most fun I had in my career was whenever I started doing version 1, and that whole run is version 1.
Look, people still love it. Whenever we're at conventions or signings, people are always going V1 and throwing up the symbols. So it's still over in 2025, man. So make sure that you guys give the tag team goats their flowers whenever you get a chance to see them, because that stuff still resonates to this day. Great stuff, my friend. Great stuff. Get back to your work. Go wrestle for TNA. Enjoy Disney. The words have been spoken. We'll see you next time right here on The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy.
Delete!